I'd just like to take a few minutes now to kind of set the scene for all the debates that you're going to be hearing over the next couple of days. And I'd just like to share with you a couple of personal experiences that I think sum these up quite nicely. And I'm a little worried to start with what I'm about to say. I'm standing here in Motown in front of a bunch of car guys. I don't own a car. I haven't even owned a car for the last 10 years. And someone's clapping at the front already. And most heretical of all, probably, I don't think that I ever want to own a car. No one's thrown anything at me yet. This is good. OK, that's not to say I don't love cars. I do. I love cars. Ever since I spent my younger years with my dad fixing up his classic Volvo Amazons. Why Santa Claus is driving that one, I have no idea. When I went to Nashville last year, the first thing I made sure I did was make sure I had a red Mustang to do it in. That's me driving. Whether I look cool as I thought I did, that's totally up to you. All my favorite songs are about cars. I love Bruce Springsteen. It's all about freedom, youth, escape, girls. But none of this is enough to make me ever want to own a car again. So I guess really I should probably back up that statement and tell you why I'm being, I guess, deliberately provocative standing here saying that. I'm 30 years old. I live in East London. I don't have any kids. I live about 5 miles from central London. That's my commute you can see up there. I'm about 2 miles from the TU-Automotive office. I live in a 2-bed flat, which is on the 2nd floor, and I don't have access to parking. So the first thing you're probably going to say to me is, yeah, it's fine for you to get up here and say these things, that you don't want to own a car, you don't own a car. It's fine for you. You live in London. It has a fantastic infrastructure. If you lived in the US, unless it was in New York or maybe San Francisco, not owning a car is just not an option. It absolutely has to happen. And I agree. You're totally right. Right now, that is very much the case. The reason why I'm standing here at the start of a connected car conference telling you that I don't want to own a car is because I think my example is really highlighting 2 key trends that are going to affect the whole of the automotive industry and all of you guys going forwards over the next decade. And those 2 key trends are that of urbanization and the changing way in which we interact with our cars, and the way in which we own cars. But don't confuse what I said about wanting to not own a car with that I don't use cars, that I don't drive, because, to be honest, that is not the case. Over the last 6 months, I've used cars to get around more than any time in the last 7 years since I first moved to London. And the main reason for that is I've developed a bit of an addiction over the past few months, one that's getting worse, and I really don't want to change, to be honest. It's Uber. I've developed an Uber addiction. BuzzFeed say it's a thing, so it must be a thing. There must be other people out there like me. And over the last 6 months, I've spent a lot of money on Uber. I think maybe. This is my first journey. You always remember your first time, $40. That got me home from central London to my house. That's with a surge fare, and to put that into context, that's still $20 cheaper than probably what it would have cost if I had to get a normal cab. So then I did something I was a little worried to do, I'm honest. I actually added up all my Uber receipts from the past year, or from the past 6 months since I first joined, to see how much I'd actually spent. I was a little apprehensive. I thought that I was spending too much. I've spent $532 on Uber. You might be thinking, why the hell is he standing up here telling me how much he spends on cabs? The reason I'm doing that is because it got me thinking further. It got me thinking about how much I actually spend on getting around from A to B. What is my total cost of mobility on an annual basis? So we started with Uber, we'll take this, and we get to just over £1,000 if we take the 6 months, or $1,000 if we double that. I can cycle to work. As I said, I'm 2 miles away. There's a cycle scheme. We call it the Boris Bike Scheme in London, after a buffoon of a mayor. He could actually be Prime Minister of England very, very soon. It's a scary thought. But that costs me $138 a year. I just joined Zipcar. Sometimes I want to get out of London, and train travel is increasingly expensive, so I joined Zipcar. That's my membership. 4 weekends a year, that's what it's going to cost me. Let's say I half that because I'm going away with a mate, or if I'm being optimistic, a girlfriend. Not that that's working very well at the moment. However, this isn't about my Tinder problems. That is what it's going to cost me for my Zipcar for the year. General travel, because sometimes getting the tube is best, it's going to cost me just over $500. So my total annual mobility cost, when I add up all these different modes of transportation, just over $2,000 a year. To put that in context, A travel card just for central London is $2,500 a year. Think how much you all spend on owning a car each year. Think about purchase, depreciation, gas, tax, insurance. I bet it's a lot more than that. So I went into this being quite scared. I thought I was being frivolous, spending too much money on cabs. It's seen as a luxury. However, I came out of it reassured. What I realized I'd done was created for myself, without even really thinking about it, a very modern mobility plan that suits me. It's personalized. It's my plan. I use what mode of transport when I want it, when's best. It's on demand. You put it onto Uber, 2 minutes later, it's there. If it's 6 minutes, you get annoyed because you think it's too long. That's how quickly things change. It's ultra convenient. And I think, as I've just proved, it's actually pretty affordable as well. And far from me standing here saying the car is dead, people aren't going to use cars anymore, what is the best, I think most pertinent for what's going to happen over the next 2 days and the discussions we're going to have is, more than ever, the car is at the center of my mobility world. Zipcar, Uber have taken it away from this public transportation system and brought it back to the car. Because to me, it's the most personalized, convenient, and affordable on-demand way for traveling right now. The second little story I would like to share with you is a little bit of my experience in the connected car industry over the past 4.5 years. I joined the industry 4.5 years ago, as I said, and you know what it's like. When you get a new job, you go to the bar, you try and tell people what you do, and I say, I work in telematics. Everyone kind of looks at you a bit weird. If you're honest, most of them don't know what it is, unless you're a car guy and you probably watch Formula One or something like that. And even after you explained it to them, they probably actually don't care that much, because it was a bit abstract. They didn't really get it. Cars, data, connectivity. 4.5 years ago, I don't think that really resonated with people. Fast forward 4.5 years to standing here today, when I meet someone new and you say what you do, you say, I work in the connected car industry. And guess what? Shock horror, I think people are genuinely interested in what you're saying. Yes, the first thing that they probably tell you is a story about when they plugged their iPhone into their car and it didn't really work, and it took them a long time to figure out how to make it work as well. But then you start talking beyond that. Right now, I realize I'm sounding like a really boring person, don't I, talking about my job in the pub all the time. However, what I think is important about it is people get it. And you start saying, yes, it's about more than just plugging your phone into a car. It's about that data, those data-driven services, these new mobility things. And people get that. They're fascinated. Why? Because it affects them. How people travel around, how people get to A to B, fundamentally affects people's lives. And whilst I think 5 years ago, we were having conversations which were quite abstract, now I think people can really, it resonates with people. The conversation then eventually turns to the autonomous car, and I think it just blows people's minds. It blows my mind, because it's going to change so many things. And this is a genuine thing that someone said to me the other day when we were having that conversation about the autonomous car. And people have so many questions when you start talking about that. And the final thing they said to me, and they looked at me and they went, this is a game changer, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, it is. It's a total game changer. It's going to change the way in which automakers are automakers. It's going to change the entire complexion of the automotive industry. And it's going to change the way in which people travel. And as I say, that's so huge in people's lives. It's something that they can really, really relate to. And that's what excites me to be here talking to you this year, more than it maybe excited me to be here talking to you last year. Because more and more, I'm realizing at TU-Automotive, we're realizing, actually, what you guys are all doing as an industry, where this is all going. Connectivity is no longer the goal. When we started 15 years ago, maybe that was the end point. Connectivity now is just the start. All those services, those mobility services, that data that you're getting off it, and ultimately the autonomous car is where we're going. And I find that hugely, hugely exciting. However, I'm not standing here saying that car makers are going to stop selling cars tomorrow. Actually, there were some pretty huge headlines last week that came out about that. But it's not going to happen overnight. Not everyone is going to get an Uber addiction like me over the next 6 months because it's not right for them right now. Why I told that story was because I think it's really important because it shows how quickly you can actually change people's mobility behavior. Just think that 6 months ago, I hadn't even used the service. And now, I've spent over $500 with them. Every year we get up here and we talk about connected services. What's that killer business model? What's going to spark that popular uptake? That big question, will the consumer ever pay for connected vehicle services? And what I'm telling you is yes, they will. Absolutely, fundamentally, they will pay for those services as long as you get that proposition for them right. Because if it's affordable, if it's convenience, they will pay for that, and I think that's really important. But these things aren't going to happen overnight, but things are happening now. What's going on behind closed doors at Cupertino right now? You've seen the hirings as much as I have. People that were standing on this stage presenting from automakers last year have now gone over to Apple. If someone was going to be the next OEM and actually make a meaningful stab at becoming that, would it not be the most rich company in the world, the biggest, most innovative tech company in the world, the company that has probably the most loyal brand evangelists in the world? People would buy an Apple car if they built it. I can guarantee that. Uber. Why are they buying all these autonomous tech companies, these mapping companies? It's quite interesting, that Daily Mail headline there. In the UK, you'll get this. If not, normally, the Daily Mail online only focuses on Kim Kardashian's nipples. But they're talking about Uber, and I think that's significant. No, never before have they really talked about Carnegie Mellon University and the Daily Mail online. This stuff's crossed over. Stuff that we've been talking about, now other people are talking about. Outside these conference rooms, this is connecting with people. And also the self-driving car, yes, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but there are cars racking up millions of miles on our roads at the moment, where they're driving coast to coast. And it's about so much more than sensor technology, all those social, ethical, political questions that need to be overcome before we can get there. And I think that Daily Mirror headline there is important. Driverless car danger has 1 in 4 of Google's autonomous mobiles crashed. Tech giant admits its robocars have been involved in 9 prangs, but blamed them on California's appalling drivers. Taken out of context, manipulated, yeah. But that's what's going to happen, because people, whilst being fascinated, it's scary. These kind of headlines will affect everything that we're doing because it's going to take time to get there. So we need to confront these questions now. At TU-Automotive, this is what drives us. This is what makes us very, very excited to keep putting on this event year after year after year. These kind of companies that we're talking about here are huge, and things are moving extremely fast. And when these guys come along, you know you're onto something right. But these tech companies aren't the kind of companies that come into a space wanting just a piece of the pie. They want all the pie. They're not disruptors. They want to own that industry. And I'm not here trying to be scaremongering, fearmongering before we start, because that's not what I want to do. I tell that because it's real, and we'd be foolish to think that those companies have any other intentions but that. But beyond that, the reason I say that is because I think you guys, we're all in the right place at the right time right now. These headlines, I think, show there's been more headlines written about the connected car in the past 6 months than in the first 15 years since we first started this conference. I'm in no doubt that the connected car, mobility, autonomy, and it's all connected things, is the hottest tech industry in the world right now. And you're the guys shaping it, and I'm honored to stand here before you guys to think that you're the guys making this happen. They announced CarPlay, they announced Google Android last year. It's not here yet. It's not as easy as it looks, is it? And you guys are the experts that know how to do this, and that's hugely exciting to think where we're going to be going next. As I say, this is what drives us at TU-Automotive to do this every year and keep putting this on. These guys have worked incredibly hard. They're kind of cowering over there right now. If you see one of them over the next few days, pull them aside, have a word. They're passionate. They know what they're talking about. And it's only by talking to you and listening to you and finding out who you think should be up here next year, who are those next disruptors, that we're going to make this better and keep it growing each year. So I need to kind of wrap up now, but my advice would be meet as many people as you can over the next 2 days, attend as many sessions. We have just over 75 sessions. We have 160 speakers. There's a lot to take in. But things are moving fast. really, really fast, which I think is hugely exciting. But it's also, when things move fast, it's not always the guys at the top who are best placed to change things. We have more OEMs in attendance and on stage than we've ever had before. And I think that's significant. Again, OEMs get it. They're on board with this connectivity. However, when you're out there having a coffee, kind of looking at someone's badge, trying to think, are they worth talking to? I've never heard of them. My advice would be, yes, they are. Imagine if you'd have seen that Uber badge out there 6 years ago and you'd never heard of them. That probably would have been a conversation that you wish you would have had. Make every conversation count. I hope you have a great time. Come away with some brand new relationships, a fistful of business cards. And if anything else, you come out these next 2 days having learned something, thought about some new things. And if you leave and go back to the office as excited about the future as what we are at TU-Automotive, then I think we've had a successful 2 days. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the conference.